It's a beautiful day to become a citizen. Renounce and adjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state or sovereignty. So help me God.
I want to be a citizen because here I have every human right. In my country, there's no such human rights there.
I feel so happy to be a U.S. citizen, and be able to vote and probably run for an office.
I always dream big to come here and, get a job and work and, be free from police brutality in my country, so I decided to come here.
You may have noticed, America has been changed by immigration in the past few decades. Here in southeastern Michigan, the change is obvious in the cities of Detroit, Hamtramck, and Dearborn. Change is also obvious far from the Detroit area in rural Ottawa County on Michigan's west coast, and tourist cities like Holland. As a nation of immigrants, we regularly honor our European ancestors and their legacies. In these programs, we will visit Holland, Michigan, to see how one community is attempting to handle the major issues associated with major cultural change. And now, in the early 21st century, we are trying to understand better the Latino, Asian, and Arab cultures as millions of these new Americans continue the traditions of their homelands.
It ain't Marvin Gaye, but it's a little of a puro remix, claro que sí. For all you English people that like un poquito de música, puro Latinos, all right. Once again, we're welcome on your country.
Immigration is the lifeblood of our nation of immigrants. But how do we decide who these immigrants will be? And how many should be allowed to come here? But since the end of the great wave of immigration in the late 19th century and the early 20th century, we have had a difficult time trying to answer these questions.
Our nation is distinctive because we are not held together by a tribal or a racial or blood myth. The United States is a nation that is based on an idea. Its founding myth holds that this country, this nation, was established as an asylum for others to come here and to become involved in their mastering their own lives, to be people who could take advantage of opportunities that were afforded by this vast continent, to people who would be protected by a bigger idea of equality and freedom and equal under the law. So this founding myth that we were established for this person, which took hold in the speeches of Washington and Jefferson and so on from the very beginning, and is in our poetry, Archibald MacLeish, and is in the memoirs of immigrants from the very beginning to the present time. This founding myth then developed a compelling narrative, a history in which the myth was lived in reality enough, not perfectly by a long shot, but enough so that it re-energized the myth and made it an attractive place for persons all over the world.
The idea of America has often been overwhelmed by powerful and influential myths.
America was created by certain people. First with the Indians, and then people came. We got statistics on who they are. What should immigration do? Change the country? Why should immigration change the country? There's no mandate for that from the American people. They don't want the country changed. They like the country the way it is. This is a democracy. So what we should do with the immigration numbers is cut the numbers down, and then when picking those that you've decided can come here and be Americans, you model that on it's like a ship. It's a mirror of America, every ship that comes to New York Harbor. It looks exactly like the American people. Just a certain percentage from England, a certain percentage from Sweden, a certain percentage from Spain. That was the national origin system. The Statue of Liberty had nothing to do with immigration. But somehow somebody really smart put on a campaign over a series of years, and now you ask anybody, and there's no difference. The Statue of Liberty has to do with the Golden Door. Give me your poor masses. Well, it's not true, and I won't go into it except to say that the Statue of Liberty was given to the American people by the French people, the French nation, and they put a name on it, and the name on the lady is Liberty Enlightening the World. They were giving the American people in admiration a statue which said, this is what America means to the world. That's the way to run a society. Model your society on that society. And she's got a book of laws here, and in one hand and the torch in the other. It's got nothing to do with asylum. That was grafted on later. So that's just one of the myths that you can puncture, but you can't puncture it. It's everlasting.
In 1882, the federal government moved more directly into immigration, and two things happened then. One, they began to set up procedures and take over the screening of immigrants, and of course they also abolished in 1882 the Chinese. And from then on, the federal government exercises control over immigration right down to the present day.
In 1965, President Johnson decided it was time for Congress to end the national origins basis of our immigration law. Since then, the number of immigrants entering legally each year has increased dramatically, and European immigrants are now far outnumbered by Latino, Asian, and Middle Eastern immigrants.
We did believe that our bill would have a negligible impact on the population of the United States. We were talking about quota immigration of, I think it was 165,000 immigrants per year. And of course the country was something like 200 million. So the idea that any tinkering you did with this number of people in the immigrant stream would affect the makeup of the population was just silly. It was just not going to happen. We did try to figure out how many immigrants were going to come from where under our new system. With the help of the Immigration Service, we came up with some numbers and statistics. But basically our approach to the Congress was that this was a a bill that would be fair, that would treat all people in all nations the same. It would regulate quota immigration to the United States in a manner that was in the interest of our country, that would give preference to people who could help the country and who could help families, citizens of our country. And it really isn't going to have any effect on the population because we're only talking about 165,000 people and their immediate families. I'm smiling because, as you know, it has turned out not to be that way, but that was certainly our view at the time. But we didn't know that Congress was going to increase the numbers and do all sorts of things that later were done.
The main way we let people in is if they have a relative in the United States. That makes up the bulk of U.S. immigration, and it's not based on whether you have any skills or anything like that. It's just that you're related to someone here who sponsored you. Just the larger the legal immigrant population in the United States, that then creates a desire or stimulates that much more immigration or desire to come from other countries.
This land was made for you and me.